Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am so glad you're here. So again, if you're new to listening to the Play Skillfully podcast, you know that recently we added some video, which makes it difficult because I always have to be prepared. Usually I, can record in my pajamas, but now I feel like I have to shower and put on makeup, and that is done, freshly done, ready to record. So I am so excited that today. Now, let me back up. Today, before I introduce, they're going to recognize you immediately, I feel like. If they've been listening to me over the years from the old podcast and now Play Skillfully, you've probably been on the podcast more than any other guest.
For real?
You're almost like the co-host, really, right? Or you're like the, what would you be? You're the girl that, I don't know, you're my sidekick almost on this. So I am so excited to have you back, Keri Vasek. So if you guys do not know Keri, I'm going to tell the story again, Keri, because we probably have some new listeners. Keri and I met at a great homeschool convention in Texas, which is actually going on this weekend. We met, do we want to say 8 years ago? 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, Noah was
9.
Okay,
9
right in the middle. 9 years ago. I had just finished speaking. Keri walks up to the booth. She's not a very happy camper. A little teary, if I recall. Yeah, a little teary. And you tell the story because I think you always tell it better, and I get embarrassed by my response. So I'm going to let you tell it. However, whatever version you want to tell.
I love telling the real version. I was at a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and was pregnant with my third at the time. I'd kind of been dragged along as just a weekend away. I wasn't even sure I was going to homeschool at this point. Kathy's was the second session I sat in, and I'm like in tears during the whole session. So I came up and found you after and walked up to the booth, and I'm pretty sure I looked at you and started crying, introduced myself, and then said, I really think my 4-year-old's okay, but he's not, like, he gets so angry when I even talk about letters, and everybody's asking if he's reading, and bless my little heart.
Bless your little heart. Right.
And you told me about your son, who, John Michael, I think, who scored like near perfect on an SAT or ACT or something on like the writing section or something. And you told me he didn't read until like he was 9 or something. And I was like, okay, then I can trust my intuition that is telling me that. But I said, I believe I asked you, how do you, like, I know you homeschool, but there are still outside voices. So how do you quiet those voices that are telling you he's behind? And you go,
yeah,
you want my real answer? Do you want my real answer? You want my spiritual answer? And I was like, I want your real answer. And you go, you know what's best for your kid.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yep.
Formed my whole homeschooling journey. Yeah, well, my mother's journey.
Yeah, I just am a super sharer. I probably shouldn't have said it the first time I met you, but that's kind of how I feel. I feel like, it isn't anyone else's business. Like, you were given these children. You are here you're at a conference trying to do what's best for them. Why does somebody else get to impart their opinion or their judgment on you and a child they've probably spent less than 5 minutes with?
Well, and I live in like super suburban Texas, which is not where I grew up. And there's a different vibe here with like who's doing what and getting ahead. And it got to me. It really, and I think when you have your first one so little, you just don't want to mess it up. And everything feels so fragile.
That's a great way to say it. Everything feels giant and the most important decision, like life or death almost.
Yeah.
If you're going to feed them eggs for breakfast or if you're going to feed them cereal for breakfast. It's like, if I get this wrong, I could destroy my child.
I remember going away one weekend and I left. I think I just had the one. I think I just had Noah at the time. And I left him with my mother-in-law, and I gave her some pureed vegetables that I was like, add these to his eggs, add them to like anything, his mac and cheese, like anything you make, just add
Yes.
some of this. So he gets, and she didn't. And I remember being horrified that my son did not get his
Yeah.
vegetable. I'm like, and
Yeah.
now I'm on my 4th kid, and he's like, "Can I have a popsicle for breakfast?" I'm like, yeah, you can.
Absolutely. Does that mean you can get it yourself? That's usually my answer. If you can fix it yourself, then yes, you may have it for breakfast.
Yes.
Yes. I know I've been so like weepy and just nostalgic lately thinking about all my kids and how quickly it has gone. Henry, as you know, is 18 and heading to college in less than a month. My baby, after all these years, my oldest is 40. I can't even believe it. Like the whole time everyone says, it goes so fast, it goes so fast. And you're like, well, I need it to go faster because I'm exhausted. And then you blink and now it's gone so fast. And
Yeah.
I just cannot stop being teary about it.
Oh, for real. I was actually just talking to somebody this morning about that. And I was like, it's my uncle. So he's talking about like seeing all the great nephews and nieces and grandchildren all running around.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Ah, it's just like, I'm like, where did all these people come from? And
Right.
how did we get here?" And I was like,
Yeah.
people say it goes so fast. Doesn't feel true to my experience. It doesn't feel like it went fast. It feels
Right.
like I've been doing this forever. And yet, didn't I give birth to you yesterday? And so I think sorry, dog's loud. In our minds that like we only have so much language to use, right? I think we
Right.
only know how to say time goes so fast. But I'm like, I don't, but it doesn't. It's just weird. Time is weird. I
That
think that's what I'm
is true.
stuck on,
Yeah. Yeah.
is like
But
it's
it also
this,
goes so fast.
and all of a sudden it's over. And you're like,
Yeah.
but how have I also been doing this?
I know. That is
For,
so true. I mean, forever. And I am tired of parenting, but I love parenting. And I'm also sad that my house is about to be quiet, even though those who know me know my house is never quiet.
well, and one of the things I've been thinking about is like, I've heard people talk about grieving when your kids are getting older, because that little 4-year-old is going to be 14 in 3 days. And I've heard people talk about grieving when they get older.
Yeah.
And it just has kind of hit me over this last year how really true that is. And I know, as someone, like, I hesitate to say this to someone who has lost a child. And so maybe you can shine some light on this too, but like, it feels like they were these whole people when they were little. And I know they're the same, but it's like this whole person that I'll never get to see again.
Oh, you're
I'll
going to make me
never
start
get to
sobbing.
interact with again. And the grief feels bigger. The grief
I know
feels
you're making, yeah.
than I think I expected, because I didn't lose a child, but it's such a unique, our child selves are so unique.
Yeah.
And like this encapsulation of this little minute piece of time, and we don't return to that. And our kids don't return to that. And they've just been feeling so much grief over, I don't get to see little you again. And that's hard.
That's a hard reality. I was just talking to a friend a few minutes ago, and she was telling me she got to have lunch with her 28-year-old son all alone, just the two of them. She's a mom of 5, bonus mom to 4. So rare that she would get alone time, and he's married. And she said, I couldn't believe how magical it was. And I thought, isn't it so interesting when they're little, we're like, please, someone let me have lunch alone without this child. That would be so magical to get this child away from me because they're glued to us. And yet here we are once, I don't know why this is making me cry more, but then they just, as they grow, you're like, to get alone time with them is so magical. That's why I always want to shout from the rooftop. And I get it. There's so many people out there and they love to make fun of parenting and how hard it is. And it is hard and it is exhausting. I'm the first to tell you, but it is magical and it is everything I dreamed it would be. And today I drove up and Sarah's taking trash out. She works at a restaurant close by, and she and two other girls, and they're doing they have to drive a trash truck right up and dump the trash. And they were so cute, girl power. They're like, we don't need boys. We got this. And I'm just watching this girl, 20 years old, just be this badass self. And I just sit there and I'm like, this is beautiful, to encourage her, to cheer her on. I'm videoing her and her friends. I'm like, y'all are amazing. And I should put the video up. I'll throw it up. But I'm like, this is something to watch. Motherhood is such a gift. I hope that instead of hating it away, we could just pause and go, this is kind of fabulous.
Yeah.
Not always.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm also like, it feels a little cruel in the way that it is so very all or nothing.
Well, you're right.
Where you're like, couldn't we have like metered this out a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. Yes.
It's so intense.
You're right.
And also at the same time, I think about Noah being 14 and like leaving the house and maybe, but like graduating high school in 4 or 5 years. And I can't, it's like, I can't even stomach that. But also this is so intense now.
Yes.
And it's the, I think we've talked before about like the duality.
Yeah.
That it is. And I think our natures, like we just so tend to hold on to this. Is this or this?
That's right.
It's
in everything.
Beautiful
either or. That's right. That's right.
And it just isn't that.
It's both and. It is. Yeah. It's beautiful and it sucks.
And so hard.
And so hard and sometimes so easy and so fun and so it's just like such a chore. I mean, it's both and.
Yeah. At this birthday party I was at this morning with family, everybody was commenting on like, Noah's almost as tall as me. And we were just standing in the kitchen together and I just like snuggled my head on his shoulder and we were just giggling. And I'm like, oh, is this kind of the best? And I think that's the thing, is at every age, there are those moments where you're like, is this actually the best? Is this actually the worst? And you're like, there's that duality again.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I know Henry. I was talking to Henry. He just turned 18 and he was so cute. I said, Henry, I started to tell a story about you and I decided not to because I hadn't talked to you lately about permission to share your stories because they're your stories. He's like, oh, Mom, share anything you want. Anything I can do to help another mom with their relationship. Tell all the stories. And I'm like, that was, I don't even remember the story I was going to share, but it was about Joshua. It was a story about when my dad died. And Henry just cried uncontrollably at the funeral. And I'm like, he was close to my dad, but not to cry to that level, right? And Henry said that he was really crying over his brother, that he didn't realize he had grief stuck in there because there was 2 years difference between him dying and my dad dying. And he's like, I didn't even know I had that much grief still in me, but going to another funeral triggered, the loss of his brother. And it was so precious. And man, that sucks as a parent, but also how beautiful as a parent to get to witness my child be able to express his emotions like that and work through his emotions and identify his emotions. And so it is. Parenting is both and. It is both and. It is both the hardest thing you'll ever do and the most beautiful thing you'll ever do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. No, you go ahead. You have something else to say before I move on?
Well, I've just been sitting with the idea of grief lately. I say lately, I mean, probably over the last 4+ years.
Yeah.
Just as walking with people who have lost close ones. And even things like when we talk about grieving our younger children, which I do think is real, or grieving when children leave the home and you become an empty nester, or grieving a life that you thought you were going to have. Like,
right.
whether it's because of divorce or just because a child is different than what you expected. I think I'm so impacted by the idea of like moving forward in life and being comfortable with grief rather than treating it like it's something you have to just like move through. Like it's this like thing that I have to get from the beginning of to the end of. Instead of being comfortable with the messiness of this is a really beautiful time, and I love having big kids. I would not go back to having little kids. I wouldn't. I love this so much more. I say more. I wouldn't have said that. And anyway, I love it so much. It's so much fun watching their personalities come out and stuff, but also holding space for that. And sometimes I feel sad that they're not little. And sometimes I feel sad that Aaron, my youngest, doesn't have a childhood that looks like theirs. Like he's not playing in the mud like they did because he's looking at these big kids who are no longer playing in the mud. And he wants to do what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think there's just, I think it takes a lot of compassion for ourselves to be able to just move forward through life, holding space for and the grief simultaneously, and to be able to teach our kids how to do that by modeling. Like I always talk about, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but like I have one who, well, more than one. Kids will tend to be like, this is the worst day ever. My brother took my favorite color crayon and now it's the worst day ever, even though it's just been a beautiful day. And I would have the kids color, like take a piece of paper and color different colors of crayons all over the paper. And then I would hold it up to them, like cover the whole thing. And we would always have a part of where that was colored black, and or like whatever color they don't like. I had one who for a while didn't like pink, so she would color a spot pink. But there was always like one color that they didn't like as much, and we always had that in there. And I'd hold up the paper and say, "What color is your picture?" And they'd say, "Well, it's blue and green," and I'd say, "Yeah, but it's not pink. Like your whole picture is not pink." Well, no, that's just part of it. Like that's like our day.
So good.
Our days can be really hard. They can be really good. We can have wonderful days with a really hard part. We can have a wonderful day and feel really sad sometimes. It doesn't mean the whole day is garbage. And I don't know. I think we have a hard time doing that as parents too.
I think we do too.
And humans.
I think modeling though is probably one of the best ways. You know, I think so many times try to get parents to say, listen, we are going to get more across to our kids by modeling it than jam it down their throat with obey the first time, with whatever the lesson is that we teach verbally. If we model it and we do it with a happy spirit most of the time, right? If we're cleaning up together and we've got the music on and it's fun, or you know, we're reading and we're taking turns and we're laughing or we're playing a game and we're modeling that, they respond to that. I mean, kids, they just do. They just are going to be so often the way that we model, right? They're going to mimic that so much more than what our words are.
When I think where we get stuck there, I think that, sorry, there are kids out here now.
Right.
I think one of the parts we get stuck at with this is where I think most people know that that's the way kids will learn. I think we tend toward deep unkindness to ourselves, a deep lack of compassion for ourselves. And so we think that if we're trying to model for our kids, but we mess up, that then we're failing as parents, then they're never going to learn, then, and so we kind of like bail on that. And we start the lecturing because, and it's, I think it's typically not about the kids. It's really about us not holding space for ourselves to mess up.
So true.
And if we can hold space for that and be kind to ourselves when we mess up and truthful with our kids and apologize quickly and frequently.
Yes. Yes.
And then talk to ourselves and say, yeah, it's okay. People mess up. Let's try again and be as kind to ourselves as hopefully we would be to our kids. So I think that's
I get that. And I agree with that. I think that we are quick to beat up ourselves over it all. I mean, over it all. I mean, I think we just, I mean, there are so many times I've questioned, did I do this? Was that the right decision? Was in the moment, did I discipline the right way? Did I have the right conversation? I mean, homeschooling, was that the best for every child? I mean, on and on and on and on and on. We question the decisions that we make. And what I tell my kids and what I truly believe is really the majority of the parents are doing their best they can. I mean, not all, right? We always know there's some out there, but the majority of us at the time, I mean, and I've made a bazillion mistakes, but at the time, I really did believe in that decision. I thought it was the best for my family and the best for my children. Looking back, I made some pretty serious mistakes that I regret, but again, we've talked about it and we move on and we use them as learning steps for all of us, for them and for me. And I think that's all you really can do. And just the hope that that honest communication gets you through it and relieves you of that shame and that guilt.
Well, and I think it's something that you had taught me before too, that you kind of walked me through is like, hey, you don't actually have the control you want to have, or you think you have. Right. We think that all these parenting decisions, like we were talking at the beginning, like we think these parenting decisions are so huge. When yes, it is a huge job. It is massive. We want to do this well, but at the same time, these decisions and the mistakes we make these, they're whole people, and all the things are part of them as whole people.
Right. Okay, we're going to move on. So I read this quote today and it made me think of you. Okay. And so it was perfect timing because I'm going to get my phone out and it says, it's L.R. Knows, who we talk about a lot, but it says, your children are watching. Let them see you happy. And then the caption talked about, again, the best way we can teach our children is through modeling. And one of the best things we can model is happiness. And how do we model happiness if we are not doing things that make us happy? And I have known you now, again, we said 9 years, so I have seen you in different phases of happiness. But lately, to me, it seems you're one of the happiest you've ever been since I've known you in 9 years. And watching you over the past 2 years specifically, you've done something that I think is magical. And I am so proud of you that we have to talk about it. We can't just talk about homeschooling because, if you ever attend my sessions, we really do always talk about, as moms, you've got to not lose yourself. You've got to keep going as who you are. This is why I do this, because I meant to do this aside from being a mom and being a wife. Is I want to be out there sharing my passion for children and for play and all of the stuff. And I remember you would write these emails to me, long emails to me, where you were distraught about one particular child at that time. And yes, I heard you and I helped you, but I was so impressed with the way you wrote. I remember thinking, this girl is an amazing writer. And I believe I even told you that. I'm like, the way you organize words and the way that you just put it out on paper or on a computer moves things. I mean, in you. I mean, I just was blown away. So anyway, you have been writing, and you not only have been writing, you have just released your first children's book. My gosh! I can't even believe it. Like, Keri, homeschool mom, drowning with all the kids, somehow freaking wrote a book that was published and is out there selling like hotcakes and is about to be read from space. You did that. You did that. Tell us about it.
Yeah.
I already know about it because I've read it several times, but you tell everybody else about Kisses from Space.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just so wild because from the time I think when I was like 16, 17, I wrote a children's book for a creative writing class, and I loved it. And it was like, I still love it. I still read it to my kids. There's part of me that's like, maybe I submit this.
Yeah.
It was good. And ever since then, it kind of became my dream to write a children's book. Well, then, grew up like we do and realized like how hard it is to get published in the industry. And I was just like, this just isn't something that's going to happen. And that's okay. And then my cousin was selected to go to space.
I mean, as cousins are often selected to go to space.
And she's my best friends. She's a mom of 2 young ones. And we were sitting at dinner one night and she's like, so it's gonna write a letter to the kids to read to them while I'm gone. She's gonna be gone 5 days. She's like, and then Anil, her husband, Anil suggested I write a story. So I pitched that idea. And then it became, why don't you write a story and we'll publish it, raise money for St. Jude. She's like, so could you, she's sitting with myself and then her sister, my other cousin. She's like, would you guys help me with ideas? And I'm like, yes, I will. And it just so happened that night I was staying with her sister just to have a couple nights away. And I got back to her house and I like start texting like mad. Like I have all these stanzas and I'm like, this, you could do this, you could do this. And like my brain is just going. And she's like, will you help me write this? I was like, yeah, I sure will.
Yeah, I sure kind of been dreaming of it. Yep.
Yeah. And so we got together and we actually, I think when we really started talking about it, was I don't know that I'll ever forget the conversation because it was so beautiful because we live very different lives. So she works for SpaceX. Now she's going to space with SpaceX. Her husband's an astronaut. She's brilliant and loves her job and wants to do it. I'm also brilliant and stay home with my kids and homeschool my kids. And I have to make myself say that sometimes because I think it's easy to compare, especially these people who I'm like genetically related to and I see what they're doing. And I think the natural response is like, am I capable? Like you kind of get sucked into this vortex of like, what am I even doing here? Easily when you're home with kids. And our conversation, like we were just talking about the way we support each other, we just support and uplift each other, even though our lives look very, very different. She probably won't ever home educate her kids. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Her kids are going to have things that my kids won't ever have. My kids are going to have things that her kids won't ever have. And yet we're still on the same journey of motherhood. So really we came at it from a place of like thinking about the mothers who would be reading this book to their children.
Can you read us any of the book? Can you share that with us?
Yeah,
just a peek?
So it's called Kisses from Space, and it came about because she and her husband used to tell stories to their kids on their way to work about this family of dragons. And one thing I love about Anna is that they work really hard and they are at work, but when they are home with their kids. And they just do it really beautifully. And so that's one of the things that they would do. They would tell them about this story, this family of dragons. Now, this is probably something you don't know, Kathy. is
No,
the mama
probably.
dragon's name is Gravity.
Nope, didn't know.
So mama's dragon name, and this was in all their dragon stories. Mama was
Okay.
Gravity.
Yep.
Baby, there are 3 babies in their
Mhm.
stories. It was Microgravity was baby 1. Okay, now you know my number 2 child. Number 2 child is Anti-Gravity, and then Antimatter.
Oh my goodness. That is
So when
hilarious.
you are looking at the pictures, it never says that's what their names are.
Right.
Their names.
Hey, that's a nice little secret insider scoop. Thank you.
So we wrote a story that I think is really universal to all moms. It's about Mama
Yeah.
Dragon. I mean, translate that into humans, but it's about a mom who has to go away from her kids, and they want to come with her, but they can't. And so it's how they stay connected while she's gone and how she returns to them.
I love it. It's such a beautiful story.
We always joke that for Anna, that's going to space. For me, it's going to the grocery store.
Right.
My kids are
So
like, you
similar.
always leave us. Okay, so one of my favorite little parts is I called time to go home. So we put on the brakes and flew down through the clouds, past the mountains and lakes. We gently splashed into the ocean of blue, our ship safely home, one step closer to you.
Oh.
And that's when she returns.
And the illustrations, wow, they are magical too. I mean, what a beautiful job Andy did on that. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember when you first sent me the first picture of that dragon, and I was like, wait, how did he get that exactly right? I mean, that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah, it was like Anna and I were talking about like who this mama dragon is. She's a deep feeler like I am.
Yeah.
So we're both coming from this place of who is she? And I was nervous handing this over to an illustrator.
Of course.
And I'll never forget when he sent the first picture of her where I was like, I cried. Because I was like, that's her. Like she just showed, it's like her heart, this adventurer, but like super tender mama dragon. Love her.
So Anna is taking this book with her to space when she goes in the next 6 months, we hope, somewhere in there.
Hopefully, yeah.
Some point in the future, Anna's going to be taking this book to space and reading it to her children and children all over. All the
and she's also going to be feeding it to children at St. Jude. So there will be an event, and there will be kids at St. Jude who get to be on camera having this read to them. So all of our advances, our whole advance, Anna, Andy, and myself, our whole advance from the deal was all going to St. Jude. And then there are also some copies that are being flown with her that will likely be auctioned, and they'll raise more money, which is just special because when I learned about this and started getting everything ready, like it hadn't been that long since Josh had passed, and it just felt so extra meaningful.
Sure.
And I think when we were writing too, we're thinking about, I gets to go on this big adventure, but like, I think our hearts too were really geared toward these moms who have to be away from their children when their children are in treatment.
Right.
When their children are going through really hard things. And so there's just, it was, for me, I think, I wanted it to be like an incognito, like love letter to mamas. Like,
and it is. You nailed it.
Oh,
you nailed it. It is just lovely. And they can get it everywhere. Amazon, Target, you pick wherever you buy your books, your local bookstore, all the places they sell it. I love it. I love, of course, my special copy that you wrote in for me, but I have another one too. I'm actually giving it to my grandson for his birthday. This copy is going to him. So yes, I know. Love that.
So,
Keri, you might be one of my favorite humans on this planet. And I'm so glad we've got to have you more. Like, I know for a while we had all the time, and because we always just have these conversations that I think are so important for moms to hear, because you're still in the grind. You're in it more than I'm in it. And so I think you have got, so many words of wisdom to share and so much encouragement to share.
Well, thanks.
And I know that so many people love to hear from you.
Oh, thank you. I would love to be back.
You're so welcome. All right, everybody go buy this book, Kisses from Space. Keri, your kids are needing you, I know, so I'm going to let you go. So love you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Kathy.
Talk to you. Okay.